Hey, thank you for having me. What a pleasure to be here with everyone.
It's great to have you. You have a few opening words for everybody before we get started with the Q&A?
Well, yeah, we've got lots of good discussion to have and lots of good questions already, so I'm not going to spend much time right now except to say just a huge thank you to the hundreds of different people, creators, who've come together to build these birthday celebrations. And of course, that's 22 years and going strong. So, and in addition to that, I'm quite sure that some of the creators that are out there that helped with this year's birthday celebration have helped with all of them. So, huge thank you to everybody. And let's, dive into the fun of all the conversation.
I see so many familiar faces in the audience too. I think you're absolutely right. A lot of folks that have been here for many, many years. We asked our community in advance to submit questions, and we got, several hundred, a little over 100 advanced questions for us. And of course, there's a lot there to cover. We pulled out some of them, and we've organized them to get started by theme or topic. And I think I'm going to jump in with the first question that I thought I saw the most towards you that people have a great interest in. When people think of Philip Rosedale, they think of vision and all the pioneering stuff that you've done. So maybe share with us a little bit about your long-term vision for Second Life. What might it look like in 5, 10, or even 22 more years?
Well, for those who know me, the long-term vision thing I could talk about for more time than we've got and all day and until everybody got bored. But so I'm going to pick a short time scale to answer on. I'm going to talk about just the next few years. And over the next few years, I think that Second Life can do something really special, even more so than it's done, in these last 22, which is preserve diversity in an increasingly homogenous world. If I had one thing to say about Second Life right now and one thing to say about our whole community and what we're doing, it's that idea that right now, the state of the world has multiple different things. For example, AI, social media, all the geopolitical stuff that's going on, not just the United States, but all of these different things are making or are trying to make everyone in the world more similar. And in many cases, repressing differences between people. That's kind of unfortunately a big trend of the modern world and the world we're in right now. And so when I think about a vision for Second Life, I'm not going to focus on a specific feature or even reason that Second Life's there, but more just the opportunity that we have on multiple levels to stand as a real difference to that, to be a place that preserves diversity, preserves differences in a world that is unfortunately just going to become more and more the same. So that's a vision for the next few years that I really hope we can continue to deliver on. And of course, we'll talk about some of the different aspects of that. How do we make Second Life accessible to more people, things like that as we go along in the questions here. But I think that's the vision that I would focus on to start here today.
Thanks, Philip. Question related to that is, do you believe that the world is ready for Second Life to expand beyond what we know as its current user base? If not, what would it take for maybe more wide adoption of virtual worlds like Second Life?
Well, that is also obviously one of my favorite things and that I think about a lot. And it's kind of amazing, right, that we've been around for 20 years and we are still, I think, the largest gathering of grown-ups in a virtual world in the world. We were at the beginning and we still are now. Now we're joined by amazing new projects like VR chat, but I would say that we're still the biggest environment, but of course we're not for everybody yet. We're still a tiny fraction of a single % of people using it. Where by comparison, social media is used by unfortunately, I think by a majority of people worldwide. So how do we get it bigger? Now, everybody that's in the audience here has different ideas about this, and lots of people, I'm looking around, lots of people here in the audience have expressed those ideas directly to me at different times and in different gatherings. So I'm just going to pick the one that I still think after 22 years is the right one to focus on. And that is that to get Second Life really big, to get a lot of people comfortable doing what we're all doing right now, we still need better transmission of nonverbal cues. The two of us are sitting here right now and our avatars aren't moving, or they're just animating very simplistically with animations that I think come from the chairs that we're in. So I can't express right now what my face is expressing as I speak at my desk and what my hands are doing. I'm moving my hands right now. Can you imagine that? I'm doing it. I think that the way we're going to take this wonderful experience that we're having here every day, and this day as well, and get it to hundreds of millions of people, and then maybe billions of people someday, we're going to have to express what our faces and our bodies are doing when we communicate. And by the way, I think that's why VR chat, for example, has become such an amazing, impactful phenomena as well. Is because, of course, when you're wearing a VR headset, you're able to express more of what your body is doing. So I think that is a big, single, important thing that still has to change for us to get there. There are lots of other things. Sure, the UI is frustrating and complicated. Dressing, I think we'll touch on that a bit in this discussion, needs to get easier. But one way or another, to get everybody in here, we need to make everyone in the world comfortable talking to people they don't know, and that means better nonverbal cues.
Thanks, Philip. I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into some of your personal perspectives. You've had so many years as the founder here at Linden Lab and with Second Life. With all these years that you've been here, what's your favorite thing about working at Linden Lab?
Well, as most people know, I came back about 7 months ago now, or I should say I came back full time. Prior to that, I had a lab that was sharing the office here, but I wasn't working day to day on Second Life. And then, of course, for the first 10 years, I was the CEO and was, very much, in it every day with everyone. Things have changed a lot over that time, obviously. This is now, heck, the company is more than 25 years old now. I cannot believe that, or I should say, actually, I think about 25 years old. We started in the, late summer of 1999. And so, though things have changed a lot, a reason that is as delightful today as it was then, and definitely is one of my favorite things about working here, is just the knowledge that we all have that we're actually working on tech that is good for people. It's so depressing to make this observation, right? And it wasn't this way in the 90s, but today, especially, working in San Francisco, I hate to say it, but I think the majority of people working in tech are working on things that are either that they are not certain what the impact is, or even worse, they're certain that the company is making money, but the impact on humanity is negative, which I think can be said about most of social media. And I would say that I think for other Lindens, as well as myself, one of the things that just makes it so fun to be here is that, of course, there are ups and downs in every day, but we all know that we're doing something that's broadly helpful to and useful to and, humane and, positive in its impact on people. And I wish all tech was like that, but it's not. And so I'm really enjoying being here for that reason.
Yeah, and having been here a long time myself, it's such a great place to be. And it's not just like any tech job. I tell myself, and I pinch myself every day just how lucky it is to be part of something that has been so meaningful for people. It's not just like a typical tech job. It is something so much more profound. And we hear that from the community all the time. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, I get those warm emails, and of course, as you can all imagine, everybody's pissed about one thing or another at different moments, and I respect that as well, and I get it. But you can imagine, I get a lot of good emails where, if you were working on something like, I don't know, pick a thing, Waymo or something, I just don't think you get the messages that we get. So anyway, I love it.
Yeah, so many stories we could share, right, about the lives that have been changed, but yeah, very much so. Of all the things you've created in Second Life, if you can pick one, which are you most proud of?
Well, from the very beginning, of course, I just wanted to see what people built. I've said this a million times, right? But more than anything, I was kind of a physics person, especially at the beginning. And so I was interested in kind of creating some laws of physics and then throwing a bunch of people into a sandbox with those laws of physics running and seeing what they made, right? So I would still say that I'm not proud of anything that I feel like I've created here, but instead, you know, I'm just proud of what other people have created, and you know, many people that are here. So things like the art in Second Life. I mean, look around us right now. I mean, you know, it feels like the rate at which we make great art together is just, I don't know, it's just exponentially more than, you know, the Museum of Modern Art or whatever. So art, teaching spaces, you know, all the ways we teach here, and then all the spaces that, as I touched on at the beginning, specifically accommodate specific or differently and specifically accommodate different communities, right? And like I said before, I'm proud when people tell me how it helped, you know, or changed them to be here. I'm super proud of that.
And as you're talking, I'm seeing people give shout outs to some of their favorite spots. I see Ivory Tower, Virtual Ability, and others. So yeah, there's obviously a lot of wonderful things that have come from the community.
Yeah.
From your perspective, is there a hidden gem in Second Life? Something that's maybe an underappreciated place or activity that you just think more people should be aware of and or explore?
Well, I mean, one answer is kind of everything's a hidden gem, right? Like one of the beautiful things about Second Life is that it contains so many hidden gems. Right. I mean, even though, I mean, our place here together is the size of Los Angeles, right? But as we all know, the range of stuff in it feels, to me at least, like way more than Los Angeles, right? You know, it feels like the whole physical world of Earth and then some. So I would say that one thing is kind of everything's a hidden gem. So I feel it'd be kind of goofy to pick out a hidden gem. That said, I would love to see, and others have heard me say this, I would love to figure out how to go back a little bit to like what I always call the sandbox culture. You know, people have come in, so many millions of people have come in even since I left, but there was an experience in the first few years that I had that was really amazing. And I've talked to lots of other folks that kind of had the same experience, where you just find a sandbox and people are building stuff and you start talking to them and you become friends with them because you're chit-chatting about, you know, the incredibly weird thing they're building and scripting and demonstrating for you, right? Like that kind of like sandbox culture, that building culture is something that I think was more central in the first few years of Second Life. We've not changed that by any intention. It's just, you know, drifted. I think in some ways it's great because Second Life provides a tapestry for more experiences now. But that experience of building together feels really memorable to me. And so it's not a hidden gem, but it's something that I would like to do and, you know, like to do more of. And yeah, and thank you, Sarah. I do like actively building myself. Like my own pleasant times in Second Life are doing exactly that, like sitting and building something and, you know, chit-chatting with somebody while I'm doing it.
Yeah, I love the sandboxes. In fact, one of my first experiences was in a sandbox and figuring out and having people help me and figuring things out in that environment. And then I think somebody caged me as well in there. It was a little weird thing that happened, but that happens. That was kind of the fun.
That's right. Putting people in giant cage balls and rolling them down hills, right? Those were the good old days.
Oh, the good old days. Yes, indeed. But that was part of the fun and the chaos of it. Let's shift gears a little bit to platform features, tech, and you even talked a little bit about VR chat earlier, so maybe VR even. This question comes up a lot. In fact, we saw several questions. Are there plans to bring native VR support to Second Life?
So it's always something that we're thinking about, but we don't have any specific plans to say on that right now. But that said, like you said, let's back up for a second and just deeply respect VR chat. You know, VR chat demonstrated that you could rebuild an experience like Second Life entirely for headsets, which by the way, High Fidelity, my last, you know, company also tried to do. So there's definitely an amazing set of possible new experiences that are opened up by VR headsets. On the other hand, as we all know, VR headsets, and I've seen a few people chat this up already in here, VR headsets are not for everyone, and they're not particularly well associated necessarily, I think, with people that say to whom something like Second Life appeals. So I think, the overlap between VR headsets and virtual worlds is not as clear. It's by no means 100%. But that said, VR headsets allow experiences that are incredible and go beyond what we can do here in Second Life. And so we have to be respectful of that. And I think we have to salute VR Chat for doing an incredibly good job of doing that and building a community, of a similar size to Second Life that is, mostly, kind of doing things on a headset. So I'm really excited about that. So we're going to keep looking at it and thinking about it, because obviously I think there's, there are capabilities Second Life has that if you could use it with a headset would open up there again completely new things. I see somebody mentioning Resonate, by the way. Yeah, shout out to Resonate. Resonate is just amazing as well. I probably kind of don't mention it because it doesn't have as large a population, but its technical capabilities are absolutely wonderful, and I've spent a bunch of time in there too, and I have a ton of respect for the creators of Resonate. So I think that VR opens up different experiences that are really something, and that they do relate, getting back to what I said at the beginning, they relate to this nonverbal body language communication that we need to be doing. And so maybe for some people, the headset should be, a way to do that. I also think it's possible, and this is, I guess, a vision statement. I've done some work on this myself. I've seen other people doing it. I believe that it's possible to create the experience of wearing a headset without wearing a headset by using AI and by using cameras like your webcam, maybe more than one of them, to look at maybe your whole body, and then control your avatar, using those motions. I have a feeling that there might be an in-between that conveys more body language in that way, but doesn't require that you put on a face toaster, as we all sometimes lovingly call it. But I do think VR support for Second Life is interesting. It's just not something that we have any announcements on today.
Philip, another topic that's admittedly a little polarizing. We got a lot of questions about AI, right? And you've mentioned it a few times already. So the question, I guess, best summarized of multiple questions that came in is, will AI, particularly scripted agents or avatars, play a greater role in Second Life's future? We got a lot of questions about that. How do you address concerns that AI could just take over the platform?
Well, obviously outside of Second Life in the broader world, which is, I have to say, my worry meter is much higher outside Second Life than inside Second Life with respect to AI. Let me say that again as an opener. I think maybe it's important for people to hear. I'm a pretty sophisticated technologist. I'm very involved in AI. I'm on the board of a nonprofit called CIMC.ai for anybody that wants to look that up, where we're actually a bunch of very good-hearted people working on consciousness and the really hard problem, as they say, of consciousness in machines. So I'm doing a lot of AI stuff that's outside of Second Life. Within Second Life, though, we have been very cautious, as you've seen, and very respectful of the risks and the debate about how to use AI. We haven't done anything broad yet, and that's, with intent. We've done a few isolated experiments. In particular, drilling down on Second Life, I'll say what I've said before, which is any use of AI that is made in here has got to end up by enhancing human contact, not reducing it. So it's got to be a use of AI that does what Second Life has always done, which is connects, caused people who, hadn't connected with each other to do so, and to do so well. If AI can help that, I'm all for it. If it hurts that, we shouldn't do it. And as long as I'm here, I'm going to, I think, maintain precisely the position that I just said. More broadly, outside of virtual worlds, there are some big possibilities, but even more enormous risks to the impact that AI is going to likely continue to have in the world. And I think, of course, as we've all been talking about, it is going to cause some necessary existential risk that is going to have to cause profound change in the whole human population. There's just no question, but that AI is going to force us as a as a species, as a planet, as occupants of a planet, to change how we work together and change how we do things, and maybe even change our economic structures. I mean, there's just a lot that is going to continue to happen. I program with it a lot. That's probably the place that I have the most experience with it. And it's just shocking what the impact of all that is going to be. I can't even make sense of it as an experienced engineer. I don't even know what's going to happen next. So it's a very exciting space. We're being super cautious and respect the risks that everybody's been raising.
Thanks, Philip. A reminder to everybody, we are monitoring the text chat, and we're going to circle back. We have some pre-submitted questions we're going through, but we will be taking questions from the live text chat as well. Keep them coming in. Philip, so we have a question about inclusion and accessibility. In the past, you've spoken about reaching communities like people with disabilities. Are there any current or upcoming initiatives that focus on inclusion for users with limited budgets or accessibility needs?
Yeah, what I'm looking forward to in that regard is the rollout of our new voice system, which is based on WebRTC. So many folks have often used that term, but that's not a very good brand name for it. But we're working on a voice update that uses a different type of engine to handle the voice. What that is going to allow us to do, though, aside from somewhat increasing the sound quality, is to rapidly add captioning, text to speech with very sophisticated new speech generators, and language translation. We think we can do all that later this year. And captioning and text to speech are the number one accessibility requests that I'm aware of. And let me give a shout out to the many people that I've talked to in World that have been advisors to me regarding accessibility. So that's the one that I'm most excited about, is getting a new voice system in place and then being able to add captioning, translation, and voices to that.
That is really exciting. I think you've just made a lot of people very happy by sharing that. So we'll keep an eye out. Very exciting. Let's shift gears a little bit, talk a little bit about Linden Lab. And basically, we're hearing some concerns from residents about user growth and retention. And so forth. So how is Linden Lab addressing those concerns for growth and retention?
Well, first off, and our browser-based streaming project, which is called Project Zero, is one that I personally have worked on a good deal. In addition to that, we've been working on a mobile product since before I came back. And between those two products regarding growth, between mobile and using the browser instead of the download, we've been able to get something like 10 times as many people able to get from the homepage, if you will, into Second Life. So like 10 times as many people able to try it for the first time. So that's a huge potential growth modifier. Now, and I'll get to this. At the end of the day, when you look at the number of people who kind of come back after the first session or two, it also looks like we've something like, doubled the number of people just in the experiments we've been doing with voice and with Project Zero and with browser streaming. So those are two really, really strong metrics that will allow us to grow Second Life more. Having made progress on the kind of platform access side, being able to get in with a browser rather than a download, or being able to get in on a smartphone rather than, using a computer at all. Beyond that, shifting our focus now to the details of what happens during onboarding. And as many people have talked about here, there are so many different things to improve there that they're, innumerable. There's a ton of different things we can make better about the initial experience for a new user of Second Life. We're going to also make, as we shift to those sort of experiential issues now, given that we've gotten the browser working, we've gotten the mobile client mostly working, we're going to start focusing on those things, and we're going to have a specific focus on, you guessed it, you said at the beginning when I sat down, dressing your avatar, which of course is so difficult today as opposed to when I was here 15 years ago, that not even I, the founder, can realistically, with the number of hours I have in the day, manage to put a new avatar on myself. And that is really different than it was. Now, on the flip side, we now have avatars that are much more beautiful and much more detailed and much more artistic than they ever were before. But yeah, somebody was saying it's painful watching me dress on YouTube. Yeah, it's like incredibly sophisticated now, but incredibly difficult. So as we shift, now that we've achieved this success of getting like 10 times as many people in the front door, we're going to shift to focusing on the experience they have after those first few seconds, and then more specifically focus on getting people dressed. And you've seen us do just a little bit of a down payment on that. Thank you to the creators, working on the new avatar welcome packs, but we're going to go a lot farther than that. We're going to start looking at the problem of really then customizing an avatar to make it suit you, and trying to do that easily or even modestly difficult rather than almost impossibly difficult.
Well, and I love how transparent you were. You mentioned earlier, everybody may not know this, but you did like videos or live, I don't know if it was live stream or recorded, but you shared with the community your struggles trying to create an avatar, right? Or customize an avatar, which I thought was really unusual, but very honest.
Yeah, it was unusual. We had quite a crowd there for those couple of times where I just sort of banged my way through failure, trying to, apply skins and not be using the demo unit, and just like all the different pieces of that were pretty funny. But as I said at the beginning, it's already gotten us a lot of design direction, because we've been able to look at those problems and use them as talking points and use them to structure design conversations. So look for updates to that coming soon, in a welcome area near you or whatever.
Fantastic. Okay, so many residents feel that creativity is what makes Second Life special, but they also perceive that Linden Lab doesn't always reflect that in its messaging or even its policies. So how, from your perspective, is the company working to support creativity, especially for those users who build on the mainland, or maybe they choose to create rather than consume?
Well, there's probably at least two different ways of looking at that. There's the messaging and policies, and yeah, maybe there are ways we can do a better job to speak about what should be compelling to you as you're coming to Second Life as a creator. So good point, heard. On the actual sort of feature side, on the capabilities side, I think the thing we have to do to keep making Second Life a happy place for creators is, aside from things like there's easy stuff like keeping fees low and keeping the GDP stable and stuff, right? Like just the aggregate population, the fact that there's a currency, the fact that you can make money if you care to. That's, I think, kind of table stakes. But I think we need to keep adding creative features. So some of the things we're working on right now are Lua. We're getting ready to support Lua as a scripting language on the main grid, and that's coming very soon. We're well into the alpha process on that, and then the next step for it will be the beginning of deployment on the main grid. For folks who know, you can go and use Lua on the alpha grid right now. The other one is GLTF. There is again a test viewer right now that allows you to import GLTF directly. GLTF is a modern, very well supported format that'll let people bring a lot more content into the world and use tools that export to GLTF. And of course, as many folks know, tools like Blender aren't planning on supporting the formats we use right now for very much longer. So I think those are things we're actually doing this year. But I think broadly, we've got to keep adding new ways for you to make content, and we do. I mean, I think it's always important. I think we got a question coming up regarding where we put our priorities, and we can touch on that a little bit more there. But those are the things that I think will keep moving things ahead.
Okay, great. Actually, you want to address that right now, like the priority question, or should we save that?
Oh, I guess, yeah, I'm jumping. The priority question is, you may wonder how do we prioritize like bug fixing versus stability versus like, people have talked about shiny, we always talk about shiny, anything that's a new feature is like shiny. I was thinking about that for this conversation, and I think one of the things is it's a little harder to see the behind the scenes stuff than it is like the new feature work. So one thing I wanted to say to the group is, for better or for worse, whether you like it or not, the fact of the matter is, for any release and at any given time, I would say at least for the 7 months I've been back, about 75% of our development effort is toward infrastructure, maintenance, performance improvements, and bug crashes and fixes. So it's like stuff that is either driven by problems that come up in world, driven by things like, say, I don't know, something as obscure as DDoS attacks that are coming at us from various directions, upgrading the platform, moving something from one part of Amazon to another part of Amazon. That consumes about 75% of our development efforts. And as we've touched on before, our whole development team is a little bit under 50 people. So those are the folks that are working on that. So about 75% of people at any time are working on the back of shop lag stability stuff and keeping the wheels on the car, if you will. And about 25% of us are working on, I guess, what we all at one moment or another call shiny, changes to the platform that are new features, or in many cases, things folks are asking for on the feedback portal. So yeah, I just did want to touch on that.
Thank you. And maybe this is semi-related, but and this is a pretty direct question about our profitability. So is Second Life still profitable as a platform, and how does that profitability influence the development priorities of the platform? So, I mean, you kind of answered that, but maybe the profitable part of it we didn't address specifically.
Yeah, well, for those who don't dwell on our finances, and I suspect that's at least some of you, Second Life has been really fortunate in that, because we offered a very powerful experience that we were able to charge money for, in a couple of different ways, land, fees, things like that. We got profitable as a company really early. Like, I think the moment of sort of break-even profitability, if I remember correctly, was sometime, I think it was sometime in 2006, right? So that's amazing. And we have, over the years that have passed since then, we've increased our profitability a bit beyond that. So yes, we are comfortably profitable. What that means is that we will be able to continue to do what we've done for the last more than 20 years now, which is basically set our own course. We don't have a critical product market fit or monetization problem that is causing us to, beg investors for new capital or something like that. So we continue to do what we've always pretty much been doing, which is sustain profitability so that we can choose where we want to take things next and not have to raise money to do it.
Great. Okay, the last pre-submitted question is really kind of an elaboration on what we've been talking about. So some residents ask that Linden Lab prioritized, again, fixing lag and platform stability over these shiny, as you mentioned, features. How do you balance the infrastructure maintenance with innovation? Is there anything more you want to say about that?
I mean, I think I pretty much said it. It's harder to keep this thing running than even I had thought coming back, to be just completely transparent. Like there's this sort of Elon returning to or buying Twitter and, firing everybody. Like I would say the experience or Doge or whatever, the experience that I've had coming back to Second Life has been more or less exactly the opposite. Everybody is doing good work and is pretty much flat out. There's not a lot of things that we could just stop doing. And that's kind of what drives that 75% number. Is that we are most of us are occupied gainfully at all times on just keeping this thing running.
Great. Well, we have sort of a backlog of text chat questions, so some of them go back to earlier comments. I'm going to jump in, and again, we're just curating from them, so we may miss a few, but we're going to try to get as many as we can. One person made a comment earlier in the conversation. You talked a little bit about nonverbal cues, and we talked a little bit about VR. So this was a comment / question. The thing about nonverbal cues that you mentioned was interesting, but doesn't Philip, that's you, think that one of the pluses of Second Life is asynchronicity? That's why, for example, a lot of folks prefer text chat to voice.
Yeah, I love that question. I don't, well said. I don't want to dismiss the fact that there are many nonverbal ways in which we communicate in Second Life, right? Like, look at all the inventive ways people use not just the text stream, but like actual actions and behaviors in Second Life as a very sophisticated way of communicating in ways that are not possible in the real world. So, I totally do value Second Life for that. But that said, what I mean is that when you take like a couple of people off the street and you put them in different rooms, that they've never met each other, and you make them avatars in Second Life, and you park them, in some interesting place in Second Life and have them chat with each other, what most people will say is, "I'm really uncomfortable." When they're done, they'll say something like, "That was a trip." I mean, obviously, anybody that sees Second Life for the first time is going to go, "Whoa!" But what they'll say after that is, "As much as I thought that was interesting, I don't feel comfortable interacting with people that I don't know without body language." When we do these tests, people don't know it's body language they're missing, but that's why we get paid the big bucks. Is over the years you vector in on this and you realize that's really what's going on. And so I'm not diminishing the appeal of communicating in advanced and sophisticated ways, as we've all in many cases invented here. But it's just that there's some table stakes around feeling comfortable when you're talking to a stranger that, as we all know, Second Life makes a bit harder. And so there's this learning curve where you've got to get comfortable with that, or you've got to learn nonverbal, asynchronous, as the person said, ways of communicating. So that's a great observation.
The next question goes back to a little bit about the Project Zero. So will the Project Zero be free later for people with smaller, I guess, lighter weight PCs?
Well, we certainly hope that we can make it free at some point. Like we've said in our other conversations about this, it's pretty expensive to run by the hour, basically, to do browser streaming. Of course, smartphones are not, so that's a different angle on it. But smartphones also are less capable in terms of what you can do with them. So, but my long-term hope is that we can offer browser streaming for free. We can't right now, which is why most people here, I've seen some people say it, haven't been able to use it. So right now what we're doing is we're using it for people as their first experience of Second Life. But what we hope is that we will be able to give it to everybody for free at some point, because the rapid advance, as I've said before, the rapid advances in AI are driving the price of GPUs down very fast. And so there's kind of a crossover point where once we reach it, it'll just make more sense to offer it for free to everybody. But we aren't there yet, which is why most of you aren't. I wish I could just give everybody here perpetual access to Project Zero, because it's awesome and you don't have to use your fan on your GPU. But we can't yet. It's still too expensive.
Philip, somebody asked a question about whether your personal creations are visible or visitable, I guess, inside Second Life. They say, do you have a place for us to visit to see Philip's creations and experiments?
I don't, but I'm so flattered that you would ask. Let me think about that. I do have my island where people have come and met me before, and I've had some gatherings there, but that does not have content that I built. I was having fun building something the other day, and I know someone here in the audience, Sarah, was hanging out and chatting with me while I was doing it. So I'll try to find some opportunities to do that again. So thanks for the prompt. Maybe I'll create a little. Maybe I can be a kind of a strange reclusive artist. And you can wander into my studio sometimes and watch what I'm doing. I'll think about that.
Love it. Okay, so the next is a comment/question, and if it's something, I'm not sure if you can answer it or not, but let's give a stab at this. They're asking a question about the servers and the location of servers. So this is a person coming from, it sounds like the European area or union. Will there be any closer servers to those in Europe?
Were they talking about browser streaming, or are they talking about the main servers?
Well, that's great. It doesn't say in the text chat that I have. So I think in general, it's a concern. If I'm based in the UK, for example, are there any plans for server changes that might make, I don't know, when Second Life run faster, if that matters? But is that something that, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good idea. We're We honestly, I don't think we've had a ton of time to look at that, but it's a good prompt. The answer is, now that we've moved all the servers onto Amazon, we can easily move continents to, for example, European servers or Australian servers, as I saw somebody say. So let me also just say noted. Thanks for the kick on that, because I don't know if it's something our team has thought about quite as much as they might have. But the good news is we're now, I mean, of course, it's never quite that easy, but we're now on Amazon in such a way with the servers that we should easily be able to set up different service regions. Ditto for Project Zero. That's a little bit easier. We can deploy on streaming servers that are closer to you. So that should be something that we definitely do as we start to open up access.
Earlier, we talked a little bit about the polarizing nature of AI, the good and the bad of it, et cetera. I know there's some anxiety in the community, particularly those that are content creators, about AI tools used for content creation. There's a lot of layers to that, right? But the question is, just reading it verbatim, is there a plan to use some anti-AI tool over uploads in SL? And then the comment added to that is, as it's starting to get a flood, I'm just quoting here, a flood of slop and copyrighted derived artwork, textures, and models. So is there any sort of anti-AI protections or things that we can comment on at this point, or what's your perspective on that?
Well, my general experience, and I'm not, I have some expertise here, but I want to qualify this by saying that there are many different types of AI content creation. So, for example, creating things with text is different than creating things with images or three-dimensional content, right? Across all those areas, though, the general thinking in the AI specialist industry seems to be that there's little hope of using AIs to detect AI-created work. And I think what the person was asking for, what one might fantasize would be to say that you could, if everybody in Second Life voted and said, if everybody in Second Life said, we don't want any AI content creation, could we just attach a no AI filter to all the upload tools into Second Life? I'm pretty sure the answer to that is no. It would be impossible. Not that it's a policy issue, but simply that it is not possible. Unfortunately, AI is moving so quickly at this point that its ability to outstrip any kind of, it's like spy versus spy. The ability to hide AI content from an AI, even using an AI, it doesn't look like it's going to work. It's not going to be something we can easily do. That said, as we said earlier, we do respect that AI, for example, the conversation going on around whether and to what extent and what should be the proper approach for AI, say, making images after looking at, millions of other images, these big appropriate debates we're having as a society about the use of AI are very appropriate to apply here as well. A third observation I would make is that maybe some of you have seen it, but as people have been saying, a lot of the AI 3D content creation that I've seen so far is so bad that I don't think it would find much purchase here. Like people in Second Life are making content that's so much better than AI generated content at the level of 3D content, at least for the tools that I've seen, that I don't think it's much of a concern right now. I don't think it would be very successful here. So, but of course that could easily change. Everything with AI is changing, incredibly fast. But I mean, we're getting to a point where I just published an essay about this morning called Ultraviolet Catastrophe for those who actively read all my Substack posts, which is, I'm sure, not everyone. But I was writing about the coming disaster that is caused by AIs being able to so easily impersonate people and generate messages that they're going to completely overwhelm LinkedIn, TikTok, and all of social media with their messaging. And so we're all going to be buried in messages from people that aren't real. So that is a bigger problem than Second Life. And what that means is that, those same fake AI people, I suppose, could come and create Second Life accounts, and we're not even going to know it. So we're all going to have to deal with this problem as a community, but it's definitely bigger than Second Life. And there's not an easy way to put an AI filter on Second Life if we all wanted that. I respect that not everybody wants that, but I just want to clarify.
There's a related comment. I had it further down the list here, but I want to move it up because you're addressing this now. They basically want you to know that are we aware, Philip, you, and then of course all at Linden Lab, aware of a recent survey by New World Notes, our good friend Hamlet over there, in which I guess he found that approximately of his surveying of Second Life users, that 70% of people in the survey were against AI-generated content. So I think they just wanted to note our awareness of that. And then you kind of addressed the question about what our stance is or what we may or may not do to protect folks. But I think it was just sort of a nudge to get that on our radar.
Yeah, I mean, with Second Life being so creator-centric, I would respect and expect that type of a number. Again, as I've said before, I think everybody understands we're definitely kind of on this. We're not doing anything quickly. We're thinking about these broader issues, like I just said, fake people outside the world coming in, and we're going to keep thinking about it. I think the good news is, because of where we are, San Francisco, because of who I am, having worked with a number of other AI companies and having a lot of good industry relations with people, I think if anybody can figure out what to do right with AI, we probably will. I mean, I think we're looking at the issues the right way, and we're really well connected to others in the industry who could help us do anything we want to problem solve around this.
Philip, there's a lot of interest in the community and helping us, in using their skills and talents to spread the word about Second Life, or even improve things like the user experience. Or, we had the Welcome Avatar Pack, as you know, recently. We have our Creator Partnership Program. So we have a question specific. I think it comes from somebody involved with our Community Gateway User Experience Initiative. But they're asking, how can we, the community, help? From your perspective, what are the options, or how should people raise their hand and let them know what they can do, to help us?
Well, thank you, first of all. What we're trying to do, that we've said in a bunch of different venues, is let everyone help us figure out how to onboard people as effectively as we've facilitated people being able to create content, right? Like, all of the content in Second Life is obviously made by everybody in Second Life, not by the Lindens. As we dive into this problem, and again, restating what I said earlier, we can get a lot more people in now to have a chance at getting them to stay in Second Life. Now that we've got that in position, we want your help figuring out how to make the initial few minutes of a person's experience like 10 times better. Now, I don't know exactly how you help us to do that, but please help us. That means experiment with different ideas and then come to us with them and say, like, so it's like, one of the things we'd love to see is for you to come to us and say, here's an experience that I think would be, for a person who had gotten into Second Life 10 seconds ago, would be comprehensible and compelling and interesting. If you've got an experience like that, where without any training, a brand new person can, come in and have a very positive experience, let us know. Brett, you just mentioned that we have a couple of different programs around trying to now work on that new user experience. So join us for those programs. As I said before, we're also very specifically looking at the design challenge of how to get people dressed, but how to get them dressed that is quick, easy, and fun, but also exposes them to all of the content. Like, we recognize that, if the new user avatar creation experience was something that felt like, making like a Mii on Nintendo or something, for those who know that reference, that wouldn't make any sense. We've got to figure out how to change the software and change the in-world content to get a brand new user able to create an avatar that really speaks to their needs, quickly. I saw somebody write fast, easy, and fun. That's touche. That's pretty funny. I think that was one of my code words for direction back in the 2010s or something.
We have about 10 minutes remaining, and I've got a handful of questions. We'll try to rapid fire sneak these in here. So we have a question. Well, you'll probably love this question given your background. They talk about spatial audio. And so they believe that spatial audio support for music and media playback is just indispensable. Do you have any plans to consider implementation of spatial audio in the future?
Well, let me back up and say why spatial audio has been such a pain in the butt. For those who don't know it, Bluetooth headsets don't support spatial audio. What do I mean by that? Before you go, wait, they do. Bluetooth devices, including Apple headphones, do not do stereo when the microphone is on. Let that sink in. It's a terrible problem. So when you're using your mouth to speak, when your microphone is turned on, Bluetooth headphones cannot present stereo to your ears. That means we can't do spatial audio when the microphone's in use on Bluetooth devices. This, I must say, is one of the most frustrating things and makes me so angry at Apple because it's Apple who could fix this. All they have to do is a firmware update, and they could move us into a new world. But one of the reasons we've not hustled more on spatial audio, especially given what amazing software we have for it, given both High Fidelity and Second Life, is that I don't know how many people here are using Bluetooth devices, but sadly, I fear it's more than zero. So that's a problem we have to get past. That said, I think that spatial audio will get fixed. That is, Apple and Bluetooth will support spatial audio correctly with mics on. I'd say in the next year or two. So we definitely will then embrace everything that you can do with spatial audio. And I do agree, of course, High Fidelity. You have to have spatial audio to have group conversations, be comfortable. And, that's one of the many reasons why Zoom and Google Meet, suck so terribly.
We have a creator tools question for you. First, a comment. Some time back, Second Life was a place that people came to make virtual things. But in this person's comment, they say, these days it seems more like a place where people bring things that they made somewhere else in other programs, into SL, so the creation through other tools and then imported in. Are we now more destined to be a showroom of content made elsewhere, or might Second Life again get tools to create while in world, like new tools?
No, we got to build more tools to create. I mean, that's a great question. Let me just, I'll give it a quick answer. The latter. I mean, Second Life has always been a place for people to create. Yes, we've made mistakes in terms of how we've built and deployed things, but in my mind, we are always should be, and always will be, a creation experience first. So if we're screwing up and we're not, we're not supporting enough of the features of Blender in World or something, then I don't know. I guess we have to figure out how to do that. We have to. I do, as many people have talked about, at the beginning, we did everything with prims, and the prims were a kind of a different kind of language for building. And so we all of us here leaned in to doing things with prims. And then when we went to mesh, because the capabilities with mesh editing were so sophisticated, we leaned on offline tools to do that. And then we imported them. Yeah, if I had my druthers, I would just have some kind of amazing, in-world mesh editing. That said, it's difficult, as we all know, because one tends to learn a tool like Blender, which has a very sophisticated set of tool sets and shortcuts and features. And then, you don't just easily learn the full power of a mesh editor in any world, no matter how well it's made. So we can think about different ways to do that. But at a high level, that's a great comment. And in my mind, we've got to always be a live building environment for creators. I think that's fundamental to our appeal, and it's how it should stay.
All right, Philip, we're down to our last 4 questions. The first of them, this is a fun one. So Sarah has said, could Linden Lab please rebuild a replica of Linden World in the Second Life grid for those of us, and there are many of us, who never used it back in the day, and they would like to experience it for the first time? Have you ever given thought to that?
What a wonderful idea. I don't know how we would do it. Andrew the other day gave me it's a funny question. Gosh, I'm trying to think how we could intern someone to come to the office and do this. The the easiest way to do that would probably be to get Linden World running again. I see somebody asking, what is Linden World? If you go to my homepage, which is rosedales.com, there's a video on there of Linden World, and you can look it up on YouTube too. But if you look up like Torley and Linden World or Welcome to Linden World, or there's a bunch of people that have put this video up, but there's a famous video that showed Linden World, which was the version of Second Life before Second Life. It was the alpha of Second Life, basically. Before launch, and it was a completely different place that was probably like 9 Sims, I think, and it was a small downtown, like it looked more like kind of American, small town American, city block sort of thing, and it looked very different than Second Life does today, and it's where I was mentioning. Oh, I see somebody with Primitar. That's amazing. Somebody's walking back there with Primitar. You should roll that thing up here so other people can see it. It's fantastic. Primitar was an avatar that was built entirely out of prims, basically, that we used to have for all the avatars. There's just a lot of fun differences. So yeah, we can take that one under advisement. I think the challenge is we'd have to get Linden World running again, because it was a good bit of content and much of it was user created. So it wasn't just the town square. There were a bunch of cool buildings that were up in the hills around the town square. But it would be absolutely fantastic to see it again. I love it. If we can think of a way to do it, we'll explore how to do it. But it was quite a bit of content.
Yeah. By the way, I think Sarah I'm just looking at chat, is saying, "I'll do it." So, very interesting there. Okay, so last 3 questions. We have a question. The first one really about the mobile app. Are there plans to improve the mobile app so you can see your avatar and your surroundings, presumably better when you're chatting?
Well, to my best understanding, we've created a really strong asset for ourselves, by the way, which is we have a Unity renderer. That's actually pretty cool. And it is the renderer that is used for the mobile app, but I've also seen it used on desktop as well. So we have a full Unity renderer. It potentially could also be a stepping stone to VR. There's a lot of good reasons to have that. So we did a bunch of good work there over the last couple of years. I was not involved in it. This was done before I got back. And it's very, very nice work. So there's a solid base there that we can use for a lot of stuff. My understanding is also that the mobile rendering is actually pretty fast. So I think basically, yeah, or in the coming quarters, you should see us do things like be able to render more avatars, be able to render, with a greater draw distance. It's surprisingly fast, and of course, mobile nowadays is, mobile devices are just incredibly powerful, as per Moore's law. So we're, I think we'll be able to get there. I think we'll be able to drive it, and I think we made the right call by essentially porting the renderer to Unity for that project.
And by the way, I'd point people to, if they missed the town hall earlier this week with Grumpity and the product and engineering team, there was a little bit of even more elaboration on mobile there. And I think that's on our YouTube channel if people want to check it out.
Right.
Philip, so the last 2 questions here. So the first of the 2, what is the one thing that you would change in Second Life if you could?
Oh, gosh. Trying to think of a pithy, funner answer to that. Of course, there's lots of things I'd change. Well, one thing that comes to mind is better support for democracy and groups. We've done a lot of good work with groups, but I've begun to think that, so when we started Second Life, we didn't think about groups at all. We didn't think about social media. We didn't think about all these different things because Second Life was just a physical place. Like, to me, there was no need even for a website or anything. It was just a piece of software that you ran that simulated a virtual world. It kind of wasn't even an internet thing in my mind. It was just a place. And as the years have gone by, I've looked back and realized, wow, there are things that came out of Second Life that I completely didn't expect. And the one that is really speaking to me today and that I talk about a lot and that I'm going to write more in my essays about is the way that self-governance tends to be done through group membership. We all belong to many different groups here in Second Life, like I think on average like 100 or something. And of course, we have to constantly keep upgrading the back end and stuff to allow you to, for example, be in more groups. One of the first things I heard when I came back and that we got done recently. So I think that making groups even more powerful, particularly as it relates to governance, democracy, maybe even identity, reputation, all these different ways that we want to govern ourselves in an online world, I think can be, if I had it all to do over again, I would have looked at the group as a kind of a fundamental primitive in Second Life. And so I guess that's the nerdy answer, but that's the one I like because I'm nerdy.
I love it. So let's close things out with this last question. If you could give a single message to the entire Second Life community about its future, what would that message be?
Well, I think I'd go back to the very beginning and just say, as I touched on at the beginning, everybody here, all of us, should be proud to have been part of what is now more than 20 years of an experiment in demonstrating that online experiences, something you do online on your computer with other people, can actually bring people together and make them happier and healthier, as opposed to making them lonelier and angrier, which sadly seems to be what we've done with most of our, technological product time in the last decade or so. So I think everybody here should be proud to have been part of an experiment showing us that online experiences can bring people together and make them happy. And the hope that gives to the world is something we all need right now. We all need to see, the whole world needs to see that you can use technology to bring us together. It is not just a force for evil, and so I think everybody here should be incredibly proud of having been part of that experiment and hopefully continuing to be a part of it indefinitely as we carry on. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Philip. I love that we're ending on that note. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great to hear your perspective, Philip.
It's been great to be here. It's great to see everybody. Hello, friends. I see so many names out there I recognize. I'm going to sit here and chat for a bit. Nice to see everyone.
Thanks, Philip, and thank you, everyone, for being here. We hope you'll check out the exhibits. If you haven't already, there's a lot of them at SL22B, so don't miss them. There's also the Shop and Hop event that goes on, and lots of activities and lots of events going on this week. Tomorrow, we'll have the Meet the Marketing, and then on Friday, we'll have Meet the Moles. Happy SL22B, everyone. Thanks for being here.